Cholera is a curable disease that still kills thousands. Is there anything we can do? Stay tuned for Health Politics.
Welcome to Health Politics with Dr. Mike McGee, a weekly program exploring important trends in health.
After disasters like Hurricane Katrina in the United States and the tsunami in Southeast Asia, public health experts often find themselves reviewing a key lesson learned over the last century. Loss of life after a disaster comes in three waves. First, death from the immediate strike. Second, death that's delayed hours or days, but is the result of injuries or complications of injuries suffered during the original event. And third, death from diseases and illnesses that arise as a result of a breakdown of water and sanitation infrastructure. When considering this third point, the breakdown of water and sanitation infrastructure, one disease has consistently been first on the lips of health leaders over the past century, even though it isn't usually first on the lips of the average American. This disease is cholera. The fact that an outbreak of cholera did not affect victims of the tsunami and Katrina reflects a victory of sorts. But this victory should not mislead you to think that cholera is a disease of the past. It continues to cause considerable suffering and needless death. How many deaths? Well, we really don't know. More than 130,000 cases and 2,200 deaths were reported to the World Health Organization in 2005. But the true numbers are known to be much higher. Poor surveillance and fear of international sanctions lead to serious underreporting of actual cholera cases. This is bad news, particularly since the risk of cholera epidemics is intensified during man-made and natural disasters, which we as global citizens seem to be experiencing in abundance. What can we do? Well, I'll get into specifics about necessary improvements to infrastructure and surveillance systems in just a moment. But first, educating ourselves about cholera can help us better understand why it continues to be such a significant global threat. Cholera is caused by a curved bacterium called Vibrio cholerae. It lives best and thrives in watery environments where the temperature, nutrients, and salt concentration levels match with its needs. Under such conditions, the bacterial cell is explosively productive. When a human is exposed to it through contaminated water, and the human does not have access to clean water for rehydration or antibiotics, death can occur within 24 hours. This is primarily the result of massive fluid loss caused by the bacteria's destructive effect on the intestinal lining. The first outward sign of the disease is sudden and explosive watery diarrhea, called rice water stool because the white specks floating in the stool were originally thought to look like rice, but are actually bits of lining from the small intestine. Cholera, under the right conditions, has the ability to spread and spread rapidly. This explosive type of environment is caused by fecal contamination of the water supply, combined with a desperate human population that lacks the resources and sometimes the knowledge to accurately respond and protect themselves. Cholera is now almost completely a third world disease. Only 5 U.S. cases were reported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in 2004, and 4 of them were proven to be acquired outside the U.S. During that same period, it's estimated that several million cases and 120,000 deaths occurred primarily in Africa and Asia, and to a lesser extent in Latin America. The first well-described cholera epidemic occurred in India in 1817. It spread rapidly throughout Southeast Asia and the Middle East. According to 19th century English physician John Snow, it spread, quotes, along the great tracks of human intercourse, colonialism, and global trade. A second pandemic 10 years later made its way to Europe and the Americas. By 1833, the English were well acquainted with cholera, losing more than 20,000 lives that year. Over the next 20 years, it struck twice again and claimed 30,000 lives in London alone in 1854. While citizens of the day could describe the physical manifestations of the disease and track its progress as it ravaged a population, no one knew what caused the disease or how to prevent it. The best theory at the time was that some disturbance in the environment, like contaminated air, was to blame. There was as well a fair amount of prejudice and bias thrown into the confusion. Charles Rosenberg, author of The Cholera Years, says, quote, "Medical opinion was unanimous in agreeing that the intemperate, the imprudent, the filthy were particularly vulnerable. To die of cholera was to die of suspicious circumstances." Such was the state of human understanding just a century and a half ago. It was John Snow, through a series of brilliant tracking and mapping exercises, who was able to connect the deaths in the London neighborhood after the 1848 epidemic to a contaminated water pump. Snow pointed to water then and again when cholera returned in 1854, but it was not until 1883 that the German physician Robert Koch identified Vibrio cholerae under the microscope. This discovery, along with further advances with germ theory, provided the scientific basis for investments in safe water, sanitary systems, and public health surveillance over the next 100 years. It became so obvious that these measures were the key to preventing cholera that now cholera outbreaks are considered synonymous with failed development. So why do cholera epidemics continue to occur? The answer is the same as it was 150 years ago. They occur because human infrastructure fails. The WHO acknowledges this reality when it labels the avoidance of cholera as one of the key indicators of social development. Thus, there are three truths that we cannot ignore. First, cholera is now almost exclusively a disease of the developing world. It affects more than 50 nations a year, mainly in Africa. Second, 1/6 of our global citizens lack access to clean, safe water, and 2/5 lack access to proper sanitation. And third, these two realities are linked. What's to be done? We must build out water and sanitation infrastructure in high-risk areas. This proved critical in reducing cholera rates in Latin America. Without infrastructure, there cannot be health. Without health, there cannot be progress. Next, effective surveillance and response capabilities are key. Take the example of Somalia, which between 1995 and 2000 experienced up to 17,000 cases of cholera with each seasonal outbreak. In response, the WHO, several NGOs, and the Somalian Aid Coordination Board established an early warning system that put in place mechanisms for rapid investigation of suspected outbreaks. Cholera task forces were set up in each region and emergency supplies were stocked in high-risk areas. Between 2000 and 2001, the number of cholera cases declined by 76%. With systems such as this in place, we can anticipate and prepare for outbreaks and control them once they hit. Cholera is a treatable disease if victims quickly receive large amounts of liquids and antibiotics. And lastly, we must continue to explore and focus on new vaccine strategies. We currently have safe and effective oral vaccines for use by individuals and health personnel. But there's work left to be done when it comes to mass vaccination as a public health strategy. The populations who need immunization the most are just not getting them. The bottom line, we know more about cholera than many other diseases, including what causes it and how to treat it. So if cholera continues to exist, it's because we as humans have simply failed. For Health Politics, I'm Mike McGee.
Thank you for watching Health Politics with Dr. Mike McGee. For more information on this topic, please visit our related web links, discussion guide, or downloadable transcript and slides. For videos and information on a variety of other health topics, visit our homepage at healthpolitics.org. If you would like to subscribe to our free weekly video, click on Subscribe to Health Politics and enter your email address. Again, thank you for watching.